podcast here, just like how everyone else starts. I
Gate
noticed
got stuck
on
on us there.
what's that?
The gate got stuck on us there. We had to
Yeah.
red flag
Well,
that one.
I noticed on Instagram that it was not working well on what was being shown. It was just shoulder to shoulder action with no faces whatsoever. So we're trying here.
We'll get
We'll
there
get an
eventually.
audio sound guy, media guy, just like Steve has with Marks on the Pulp MX show. But yeah, recap round 2, San Francisco. My RM fantasy picks were absolute trash because I picked them on Monday and then I only got some feel good points on there. We'll go back to those. Grayson, you were saying before we restarted this broadcast that well, you picked your picks later on, so
Yeah,
that made it better
I
for
waited
you.
waited till the end, so it kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage just to see what was going to happen to the track and whatnot, but still came up a little short.
Yeah. What did you think about kind of the racing in the mud? We got that out of the way. The bingo card is almost complete on Moto Memes, but Chase did us a favor. Well, he didn't do us a favor on the Moto
He did
Memes.
himself a favor.
He didn't tuck the front end, and he was pretty much starstruck from start to finish there. You want to go over the 450 first or 250 main event chaos that went down?
Either one. Let's just jump right in. Whatever you feel like you got fresh on your mind.
Well, if we want to go by the list here, everything's opinionated, of course,
Yep.
because we're not at the track. But later on, we will have a guest here, Jimmy Marquez, who was at San Francisco, and he was our 30+2 podcast reporter. Yeah, we're just going to say
Live
that.
and on the scene.
He doesn't even know about it yet,
Nope.
but he's a part of it now. So 250.
Our correspondent.
Exactly, our correspondent. We're gonna have to send him out to future races, so
Yep.
us poor people here can sit back and watch from the couch, and he can give us all the reports. He may ask for money though, so we'll have to figure out the budget here.
We'll look into it.
Well, first off, the 250 main event, that was quite a race there, and Jordan Smith grabs the whole shot and pulls away. What'd you feel about that opening lap? Shimoda was right there in the top 5, and then you want to take us through what happened to Shimoda there?
I feel like the mud just it came back and got him. He was looking really strong there for a minute. Surprised to me, honestly. I didn't think he was going to come out swinging that hard. But he's angry from last week, so he's got to put everything he's got into it with the mud or whatever kind of conditions, and he went for it, and it just seemed like the mud just came up and got him by cross-rutting there, and he just never could, capitalize and get back on it after that little incident.
Yeah, I mean, he was running 4th right out of the gate, and then what was so weird was after the triple section, before the whoop section, his bike just gave out. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see. I haven't seen anything on Racer X or any of the large, areas, including even the podcasting that Steve and Weege and Thomas do. There's no explanation on why his bike just quit on him yet. So I'm curious to see what will happen in San Diego, if we'll get any kind of update on that Honda. But I mean, it would have been a little early for the bike to, the clutch to give out. I'm not sure.
I'm thinking electrical, most likely. Now with all these, electronic components we have nowadays, that was just too much for it to handle. And, we're probably not going to hear much about it. Honda's, I feel like, kind of going to be way more hush-hush than anybody, being one of the larger OEMs out there. So, like, kind of when the whole Kenny thing happened, posting on social media something breaking, and I think this is going to keep them from saying anything. They're going to just bike technical difficulties and stuff like that, and they're going to move on from it. We're not going to get a real answer.
Yeah. And what sucks is he is now 29 points back in the series and 13th place. Can he make a comeback in this championship? There's 8 races left if you're including the East-West shootouts, but I mean, we're only 2 rounds in, but that's already a large gap to try to make back in such a short series. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really steep hill for him to be climbing. I think he'll climb it pretty quickly, but I don't think he's going to get to the top. You know, he has to have to rely on some really bad luck for RJ and Kitchen, and you know, I think anybody at the top is going to have some really really bad races for him to even capitalize on anything. But yeah, if he was down 10, maybe even 15, I could see he could really come back from that. But that's just way too big of a deficit to make up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see the current point standings now with Jordan Smith taking that win. He's got 47 points. Levi Kitchens 5 points back with 42. Hampshire with 38. What about Pacific Northwest Zone, Levi Kitchen? I know we talked about him last weekend for the opening round on how well of a performance he did. He was a little tight during Anaheim 1, which he said to Steve in his interviews and whatnot. And he also said during Race Day Live and other interviews that he's not much of a mud rider, but I mean, he kind of killed it there.
No, he really showed up. Obviously everybody knows how wet it can get up here in the Northwest. So like he's definitely probably has a little bit of an edge on a lot of those guys with the style of mud and whatnot. But I don't think anybody can really be a good mud rider unless you come from like a GNCC background. You know what I mean? nobody's ever really prepared. So he did have a little bit of a leg up on some guys, but I think his biggest thing is now he's consistent 2 weekends in a row on the box. That's huge, and that's just gonna carry some confidence into the next few rounds, and hopefully he can keep staying there.
Yeah. Well, watching it, one thing I picked up on was Levi was very patient during that whole race. He started in 10th and he just worked his way all the way to the rear fender of Jordan Smith. If they haven't have shortened that main event
He would have
by
gotten
5
him.
minutes, I mean, who knows what could have happened. But I really think after the few years of really having some, first race issues, engine, whatnot, he's really matured into this rider now to where I feel, and then we can ask him later on. I'm sure you can get a reply from Levi on Instagram.
Right.
I think he deep down feels that between Hampshire and him, like he can really get this championship in the West Coast. Like, not to put any credit against Jordan Smith, though.
No.
I just think Levi's really got it figured out this year.
Yeah, this year looks really promising for him. Like I think I was saying last time with the switch over to PC now, I think he's in a better position probably with bike wise and mentally coming from, such a big team to a little bit smaller of a team, more time to focus on him, give him probably more things that he likes. And, I feel like it was a really good move for him. And I think there's some really big things coming with this PC team and him.
RJ Hampshire, he was looking great in 4th position, and then he was going up against 100 of Burdon, and now he's 9 points out. That crash really took him out of the battle there. Is that just kind of a fluke thing that we're thinking of with Hampshire? Do you think he's going to bounce back in San Diego?
I think he'll bounce. I think for sure he'll bounce back if we have some nice conditions and avoid some more rain. That was just kind of a fluke. I always feel like kind of a mud race is kind of a a throw out mulligan type of thing, essentially. And you really never know what's going to happen, and it's not relying on basic skills and stuff like that. It's a survival race at that point. Who can make their bike last the longest and who can stay up more? It's not going to take a lot of skill to do that. It's just survival. And I think he'll bounce back the next week if we have a nice dry track for him, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
He still had a solid finish, and he's only down, what'd you say, 9?
Yeah, he's only down 9 points. With him being a vet, I mean, I think with the red plate and points lead between Smith, Kitchen, and Hampshire, I feel like it's just going to be those 3 all season. Do you have any obligations or disagreements to that?
No, I think it's going to be those 3 that you're seeing battle for that top spot every weekend. And maybe somebody might get a wheel in there every once in a while, but I think it's mainly going to be those 3.
Yeah. Well, our guest, Jimmy Marquez, is now in line to join us. Maybe we could get his thoughts on the 450 class as well. And then jump in, ask him how was San Francisco, why he brought the rain, ruined it all for everyone, All right, let's get Jimmy jump on here with us, and hopefully I don't mess up all the connections here for Instagram Live and YouTube and Facebook. All right. Now we
See
have
him.
three
Gentlemen.
winners. Yeah, Jimmy's at the bottom.
Yeah, sorry. Nothing new. How goes it, y'all?
Yeah, we can hear
Good.
you good.
Yep.
Awesome. Good. Glad to hear it.
Well, I guess Grayson didn't get the memo to wear a Gate Drop beanie to, support Gate Drop Productions.
If I had one, I could, but
I got to put something on to tame the main here. I mean, Swap Moto Live apparently had me up, and yeah, that was poof.
Yeah. So before we jump into the 450 class and then, put you at the tail end of everything and be like, who are you? I mean, Jimmy, you've been, give us a little bit of a background of why were you at San Francisco? I know you've done Seattle. How did you get into doing all AMA events?
So with that, I kind of got lucky. Admittedly, I got in through nepotism. My uncle was in the Air Force with my contact in the AMA. So, anytime they'd come to town, he'd ask my uncle, hey, do you want to work this event? And then one year, my uncle said he didn't want to do it because he wanted to spend the time with his wife at the track instead. So he told him, hey, my nephew, if you want, I can ask him. He'd probably do it. And of course, yeah, a chance to go get in for free, how the kind of access that I get. Like that alone is pretty cool. And then like, oh yeah, we'll give you, we'll pay you for it too. So at this point, it kind of started out like that. I'd work Washougal, work Seattle, and then I just worked my way up. So last year I ended up working Washougal, Seattle, Millville, and Hangtown. And so they pay me a flat rate, and then it's up to me to get there, flight, room, food, that's all on me. They feed me at the track, of course, but
yeah,
everything else is all on me.
So is it all just about connections, and that's how you got into doing stuff for Supercross and motocross?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty tight-knit group in there. For the most part, when you go to an event, you're going to see a lot of the same faces. I'm on first name basis at this point with, J-Star, John Starling, and his wife, Stephanie. She also runs in the AMA truck as well. You got Tooley, Tim McAdams. He used to be a former factory mechanic himself. And stuff like that, people like that, I should say. I mean, hell, the one thing I didn't realize, because this is the first time I'd actually flagged the Supercross race.
Okay.
Of course, I'm an anonymous dig dug. They got the helmets, and one thing that I hadn't realized is that they don't have speakers in these helmets. You're supposed to bring your own headphones.
Okay.
I didn't realize that. So they have some headphones you can use, but they're like real cheesy, don't seal in your ears. So when you got all these bikes out there on the track running around you, with those cheesy headphones, you can't hear. I mean, I can hear the radio going off, but I can't hear what they're saying, including the time that I had to get chewed out.
Oh no.
So, I mean, rookie mistake this time around, but
Right.
I'm going back again this weekend for San Diego, so I'll take my own headphones. I do have good ceiling headphones, wired headphones, so I'll be able to hear a lot better this time. But after the initial practice rounds, I was, kind of talking with them about it, and Jeremy Albrecht, J-Bone, he told me, hey, I think I got some cheesy headphones, that were given to me for free. So he's like, let me go check. And he came back. He's like, yeah, I've had these for like 5 years. They said Avis on the back, car rentals. He's like, yeah, they're kind of cheesy, but hey, they might work. Try them out, see what you think. And yeah, they were a lot better. I could actually hear what was being said to me. So
that's cool. Sounds like a pretty tight knit group of people there. You're working.
Yeah, it is. It kind of is a boys' club. Everybody's really cool with each other. You do get some newcomers, like I said, myself included. But
right.
I've worked a few events up here in the PNW, and now they know me, so they're cool with me kind of expanding out more.
That's pretty cool.
What was your official role for San Francisco? I saw you in a photo doing a sound check on a bike that probably was, later on annihilated due to the mud. What was your roles for San Francisco?
So this year, since they changed it up, they're running the East Coast events earlier for the West Coast, or excuse me, running the West Coast events earlier for the East Coast viewers. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're doing tech inspections on Friday instead of Saturday morning. So that's kind of what I was doing there. I had to go in there and make sure the bikes were, good to go. Had all the stickers, logos in the right places. The helmets had their, air ejection systems. Jerseys all had their logos as needed, and stuff like that. And I had to note down every frame has an AMA sticker on it, frame number. basically an identification number. So it was kind of up to me to track down. They have two people writing the same numbers down to make sure that everybody's noted. They have the list of your riders, first name, last name, and frame number, and then any other notes you might need to make. So there were some riders who didn't have frames or frame stickers. Either this is a different bike than they ran last week, or they didn't run at all last week. And there were some bikes that even had older stickers on them too. There were a couple of the riders that had bikes that are a couple, 2 or 3, model years older. Privateers doing what they can. They can't afford to have a new bike every year. So that's kind of what I was doing in that video. That Swap Moto Live had me on there. I had just happened to drop that sticker as I was putting it on the frame. So, oh joy.
So what's the reasoning behind the frame stickers? Is it just make sure that they're running the same bikes? Like what's the whole thing with all that?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you can only tech one bike for most of these races. I think for the Triple Crowns they make an exception, but I'm not working any of the Triple Crown events. But yeah, for the most part, you have one bike that you tech, and that's the only bike you can have out there on the track. If your bike blows up this week and you have to run your practice bike next week, then you can tech your practice bike next week. And then you'll have a separate frame sticker on that bike. And if you try and show up with your race bike after claiming you're going to have your practice bike, it's going to be a separate frame number. So that's kind of where they're going to call you in and, get that taken care of.
Are they checking the riders as they go to the line and making sure like their numbers match up? Or is that just kind of like we'll see what happens after the race is over and just double check that you're on the right bike?
I think, yeah, it's pretty much more of a making sure everything's right after the race. Like, after every race, the top 3 races have their bikes impounded.
Yeah.
And this year, with the pits being as far away as they were, everybody had to stop and wash their bikes because the city of San Francisco didn't want mud on the roads. Fair.
Yeah, that's
fair,
but yeah, that's so far away.
Yeah, and it was a good trek too. So, but yeah, essentially they just impounded them right there as the bikes were getting washed. They basically had them impounded right there. So
cool.
So
yeah, it was good.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to jump over you. I was gonna say, so after like tech inspection, what else are your roles for the rest of the day? I know you mentioned a little bit of dig dug stuff. Like, is that what you go to next? Just slopping around in the mud?
Pretty much. I mean, like I said, tech inspection is Friday 1 to 4 on the West Coast events. So that's a whole separate thing. And then after that, we shut it down. In this case, we had to pack everything up, throw it on the back of the mule, throw the tables on the back of the mule, and make the drive back to the AMA truck. The AMA truck itself was parked right next to the stadium, next to the Alpine Stars mobile medical unit. So, those 2 trucks are right there. With the rain and the wind, they didn't want to pull the full canopy. The full, basically the canopy, the awning. That's where I'm looking for, the awning.
Yeah.
So they had just 2 pop-up canopies, strapped to the truck instead. And it was pretty needed because, man, when we got done Saturday night, it was raining and it was breezy, so it was a cold night.
What was it like to be on the stadium floor? Like, what was your job, like duties during the entire like main event and everything else? Were you trying to keep hay bales in place or what?
So my role as an AMA official, I'm also a flyer, but basically all I had to do was I was watching what ended up becoming the double after the finish line jump.
Okay.
So, they go over the finish line 180 to the right, small double, big double. That was a triple in practice, but with the changes that they were making, they ended up just chopping it down to a, slightly smaller than a triple double.
Yeah.
Which even at that, by the end of the night, most guys are just rolling both anyways. So my duties there were kind of just to keep an eye on that area between the launch and just past the landing. And if anybody went down, I had the control for the lights. So if somebody went down, I'd turn on the lights, call it in, hey, code, whatever, depending on the severity of the wreck, section, in that case, 18, I got to shut down. Or if they crash off to the side of the track, a code 0, section 18, no lights because they're off the track. So that's what I was doing. There were a couple of times like some of the guys would crash on backside of the finish line jump, that's a blind jump on the other side. That's, if you're coming from the other side, you're not going to see that person. So there were a couple of times when people would go over and they'd run into the back of somebody on the downside. At one point, there was a literal line there of people just tire to tire backing into each other.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I asked, my contact, hey, do you want me to move over there so I can direct traffic if there's nothing going on over here? And he told me, no, you stay there. You make sure, that area is clear. Your only job is to focus on this spot here.
Yeah.
So, once I turned on the lights, I had to get with them, and they would let me know when I could turn the lights back off. So that was the one thing I need to get chewed out about was I turned the lights off.
Was it crazier to do that a mud race, or do you think it's a little harder for a dry race for you? You know what I mean? Like, there's obviously probably more guys going down on a mud race, but like everybody's going so much damn quicker, on a dry race. Which one do you think is a little bit more difficult to keep track of for that?
Yeah, I would say probably the mudder, I think, would be a little more busy because if the track is dry, it's not very often that guys are going to have problems in these triples.
Right.
So I feel like I'm going to be a lot more busy on a wet track than I will on a dry track. On a dry track, I'll keep an eye on it, but you're less likely to see something go wrong, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, I've seen some guys come up short. I've seen, Bubba Pauly got taken out right there.
Mm-hmm.
My thumb buddy over there. Hunter Yoder, that guy, he came up way short in practice. RJ Hampshire, when he went down in the main, that went down right in front of me. Mookie almost run me over. Barsha almost run me over. You got to play dodge bike too. You're standing there. You can't get bogged down in the mud because you need to have an escape route because these guys they're in control as much as they can be. But with elements like that, man, sometimes the bike's going to do what it's going to do, and it's going to plow over anything or anybody who's in the way. So there were a couple of times I had to kind of dance in and out. At the starts, as the gate dropped, I would actually be standing in the lane because there's a long ways before they get to my area anyway. So the safest place for me was going to be out of the way because if something goes wrong and somebody ends up kind of whiskey throttling off to the side, I'm going to have a better chance of getting out of the way, being tucked behind the landing of that double than in between the two lanes.
Well, now I need to go rewatch to see how many times I can spot you out there, like ducking and dodging everyone.
Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, it honestly wasn't really all that bad as far as being cold or being wet. They gave us, an AMA rain jacket. So, although I did take my own, but still, if I'm going to have the branded one, I'll take the branded one.
So when the race wasn't going on and tech inspections done, like, are you just allowed to free roam? Like, what was your whole duties to do after qualifying while we were waiting for racing?
So initially, what the plan was, they had the first round of qualifying. They cut out free practice in the morning.
Yeah.
And then there was going to be the first round of qualifying. There was going to be like a 20-minute break, 20 or a 40-minute break, and then they were going to come back. But after that first round of qualifying, they brought the dozers out, and they were already knocking down the triple that I was in front of. So after about 15 minutes, they called it in over the radio. Hey, guys, we canceled second round of practice. We're done for the night. You go ahead and head back in. They had a room for us off to the side inside the building.
Okay.
So they told us, go in there, get dry, get warm. They fed us too, of course. So
pretty much just hang out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just hang out until then. You could go walk the track if you wanted to walk the track. During opening ceremonies, you couldn't be out on the track, though. I think that was just a safety thing with all the pyro because there was talk of one of my lights being kind of out of place. So I started to walk out there to go, check on it and fix it as needed. And they kind of called in over the radio, hey, who's walking on the track over there? Get out of there. Get back. So that was the second time I got chewed out.
Oh, man. Well, jumping back into, because we haven't covered the 450 class, and we have you on here too, so we can take your input as well. I don't know how much you got to watch the race because you're working it. Did you get to rewatch the race at all, Jimmy?
I did get to start watching it. I didn't really get to finish it, though. I mean, of course, I know how it ended, but I had to stay hyper-focused on my area, so I couldn't really look around and see what was going where.
Yeah.
But
Right out of the gate in the main event, Sexton, I don't know if he's been hanging out with Michael Essie or something, but he timed that start perfectly. If you go rewatch, like
I
the
did see
gate
that.
dropped and he is a rocket ship out, and he didn't look back and get really any pressure from anyone. Tomac recovered into second place early and controlled second all the way to the end. Grayson, Jimmy, do you think the first round jitters are done for Eli Tomac? And what do you think? How do you think he's going to do coming into San Diego, which is supposedly, I think, looking at the weather, it's going to be back to normal.
Grayson, I'll let you go ahead and start.
All right. No, I think the first round's out the way now. You know, he's figured out what it's like to be back on the track with these guys because it's been a little while. So, you know, it was probably a little rough coming back from such a crazy injury with the Achilles and stuff like that. So I think surviving A1 was key with, you know, what did he get last week? 9th or 10th or something like that. So I can't even remember anymore. It's been a bit, but I think with this podium spot and moving on up, I think he's just going to slowly climb through everybody for the next couple weeks. I don't know if he's going to get a win quite yet, but I think he's going to, within the next, probably maybe by like Glendale, I think he'll pull off a win.
I think I would agree with that. You know, he had your first race back after an injury like that, being out for so long. It's going to take you a little bit to kind of kick back into the race mode where everybody else has had the entire outdoors and whatever other off season races they're doing. You know, they've had all that time to keep racing. Tomac, I mean, Star Racing, they have a very competitive home practice setup, but I don't know how often he's doing that. I know he likes to do his own thing in Cortez, Colorado, and he had Deegan out there too. But you know, that's comparing a 250 to a 450, literally. So, and a pretty rookie kid.
Yeah, with that second place finish after that kind of so-so start to the opener, and we still have a long ways to go for the Supercross Championship. He pulled his way back into within 10 points of Sexton now. Sexton takes the red plate back. Jet Lawrence, well, the streak is over finally. Are we happy about that? Like, or what? I don't know.
I didn't even think it was really...
low-key feelings he would keep it up, but the mud really messed up a ton of riders. What do you guys feel about Jet's performance there?
If you want to go ahead, and Jimmy.
I hate to say it, but yeah, I am kind of glad to see him kind of take a fall on this one. Like, there's really nothing to hate about the kid. The guy is just a total people person. Seems like he has my kind of personality of...
Yeah, no hate comms on him.
Exactly. Yeah. Just the only issue I take with this kid is he's not on my preferred brand of bike, and he's way too good for not being on my preferred brand of bike. And that's really the only fault I can find with him. He's you know, a very personable kid. He's very polite. He's fun. So like, there's really like you said, Steven, no hate comms. There's no reason to dislike this kid, other than he is too good.
That's my thing. I like variety of winners. You know what I mean? So it was nice to have someone different on the top step of the box. Even though Sexton's won a bunch before, it was nice to keep the points close. Grayson, what about you?
Yeah, I had, you know, I didn't think he was going to go undefeated for sure. That was kind of, I feel like that was a big task for him to meet up to. But obviously he met up with that with outdoors last year. So it was very possible, but I am kind of glad it didn't happen. And it's actually, I think, going to light a fire under some of these guys who weren't able to beat him last year. And now like, hey, wait, this is possible. You know, he is human. He can make mistakes. Obviously, the mud was such a big factor in this weekend, but I think this will definitely help some other guys come up and realize, hey, we can actually beat Jet. This is possible. But no hate on him. Awesome guy. You know, he gives me some, you know, reminders of like Pastrana back in the day, or like early James, you know, just with the Lambos and stuff like that. But he's also a very like chill guy. It seems like he's not over confident or arrogant or anything like that. So I think he's a good dude. But yeah, I'm glad to see somebody else get a win and a few other guys beat him this weekend.
Yeah. Team Suzuki. Well, I'm just gonna say bold statement. We're back. Roczen third into the first turn. He unfortunately stalled it, but luckily got it. Started again. Made the comeback all the way from 15th position in 3 minutes, by the way, and moved up in the third. Okay, this is my hot take argument here. If he did not stall in the first turn, what is the percentage pie that he would have taken the win over Sexton? You guys got any percentage? I think nothing against Sexton here. He did get a great start, but I feel like it would have been like Jordan Smith and Levi Kitchen on that final lap if he did not stall, because Kenny was on a mission that entire main event.
I think Kenny would have probably been right up there with him the entire time, if not made it past him with how much he moved up through the pack so quickly after stalling that. To say if he was up there with Sexton on a clear track, who knows, maybe he could have pulled a gap on him and everybody else and just rode a smooth race. You know, if he would have had that electric start, I think he wouldn't have lost as many positions, unfortunately. I'm a Suzuki guy for life and everything, but still that electric start would have probably saved him a little bit of time to get back up there and possibly even catch Sexton at the very end.
I mean, who knows? Shimoda had the electric start on his Honda and it failed. So I don't know. I don't know what your argument here is. Jimmy, what do you think? What do you think Kenny would probably be right there bar to bar with Sexton?
I think he's definitely got the potential to. I mean, I'm sorry, I lost you guys for a bit there. My connection was acting up, but
oh, that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I will say if there's one team that really needed that Recluse Clutch sponsorship, I hate to say it is Suzuki. I mean, especially in a mud race like that, man, the extra weight of the bike, extra weight of your gear from the mud and the rain and all that, having to take the time to actually kick that bike is also just going to drain so much more energy out of you in a sport that you're already taking a lot of energy, just to compete. So, but as far as talent, man, there's no denying he's got the talent. And it's kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but look at the injuries he's come back from. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I think this is his year. I do.
Yeah. I mean, another year on the bike. He's comfortable. He's got the suspension he wants. Shout out to Shane McElrath. He was in third for quite a while. Dropped down in the fourth, and he really screwed my RM fantasy picks because he's not really nothing against Shane. He just hasn't had that breakout performance yet in the 450 class after his 250 run for a while.
Yeah, no, he was solid this weekend, and he proved to, staying up and surviving, is a key thing with these mud races. But yeah, he hasn't quite shown, I feel like, his full potential sometimes. I feel, he's a great rider, always has been, always will be, and he's a good rider, I think, for Suzuki to have on the team too. He's really consistent and generally makes, the main events almost every weekend, just never pulls off the top 10s or the top 5s, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But seeing that fourth though, it's really cool.
And we'll have to see what that does for his confidence for San Diego. I did look at the weather while you guys were talking, and there actually is rain coming in the forecast for the evening program. So
yeah, I checked it earlier today. And yeah, it wasn't. It was looking cloudy last I checked, but that's still a few days away, so it's subject to change.
Yeah, being on a Monday here, hopefully it changes because I prefer dry supercrosses over muddy ones, even though you never know what's going to happen in the mud. This one really threw everyone's points and positions upside down. And jumping into a few other notables before we go into our Bone to Pick segment. Webb is, with 2 rounds down, has only 27 points versus Sexton's 45. What does Cooper Webb need to do to get back up towards the front? Because he's shown potential at the opening round. That crash really screwed him. And then I think he had just another kind of so-so race. I think he might have, he almost fell with Ferrandis. Like, do we pull the panic button out yet?
I don't think it's quite yet.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's time to push that button yet. He was doing really good that first round, and like I said, he just had that hiccup on that hip jump, and that cost him. Round 2, it's a mutter. It's the great equalizer. It's not going to be a normal race. You can't really take much off of this race, I would say. So if this third round is dry, I think give him that. See how he does there. If he makes another mistake, just kind of simple like that, maybe then start worrying a little. But he was up there for battling for second place in that first round. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button on that.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious because, we've had past races like 2009 with James Stewart, like DNFing the first round, being 25 points back on the opening round. And he had to overcome adversity through all 17 races with more deep field riders here. I'm curious to see like if this one round is really going to kill the championship for Webb.
I don't know if it would kill it. It might put a damper on it, and obviously it's going to make it harder for him to get up that hill to the top, but I don't think it's going to put a damper on anything. He's strong, and he showed that back in A1, and I think maybe once we get to A3 or something like that, maybe if we haven't really gotten anywhere, maybe then we should start worrying. But I think we still got a couple races to figure that out to really know what's going to happen with him.
Customer comment. One of our viewer comments on Instagram, if any of you guys want to jump in here. Plymouth, I just butchered it really bad. He came here for the hot takes on Billy Laninovich. When do you think Billy's going to get in the main? Do you think it's coming for sure? He believes it is. Is it past Laninovich's time?
I mean, he's got the skill. He might be an old dog, man, but he's still got the skill to be up there. The fact that he's even still qualifying for these night shows, I mean, he's got heart. He's 40 years old. He's still out there fighting with these kids. I mean, even the other older guys are still kids compared to him,
So I as I cut Jimmy off.
That's all good. Actually, I'm gonna have to take a step back here for a couple minutes. My phone is on 3%, so I need to go run and grab me a charger real quick. I will be right back. I'm sorry.
No, you're
all
good.
Right, we'll get Jimmy back on here in a moment. I'm gonna just take him off the screen. Just cut him out.
I think I don't know. It's I don't know really. Billy, he's an awesome rider, always has been, has a lot of skill on the bike, but I don't know if he's going to quite pull off a main event, honestly, this year. Now, I think if he, because I don't think he's doing the whole West Coast, is he? I think he's only doing a handful of them.
I think that's true. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. Go for it.
If he did the whole thing, I think, the last couple rounds of it, I think he would definitely possibly squeak in there through like an LCQ or something like that. But he's an awesome rider, nothing against anything he's done or anything like that. He's awesome. And it's hard, especially like you're saying, 40 years old, to go out there and go as fast as these guys are going and get back into race shape that he hasn't been in for what, like 11 or 12 years or something like that. That's a huge stepping stone for somebody. And, if he was going longer, for sure would definitely, I think, get a main event. But if he's only doing selected rounds, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, that you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. I'm thinking the later on he goes, like maybe Seattle or even Denver, I feel like your chances will be better because you'll have more drop off of riders, because that tends to happen in both Supercross and motocross. Yep. So I enjoy seeing what he's doing. I just feel like the cards are really stacked against them as of right now with 2 rounds down and everyone's still in there.
Yeah, no, they are pretty stacked against him. It's really hard with how many fast guys there are now. Just the 250 class is pretty full, I feel, this year compared to normal years. I feel like the gates have been fuller the last couple weekends. Obviously, the mud probably kept a handful of people away, but I feel like the gates have been fuller in the 250 class more than they have been in a little while.
Yeah. You want to go through our RM fantasy picks before we go to the bone the pick of the episode?
Sure, let's do it.
So I don't know if you play Jimmy RM fantasy or not, and if you have your picks or not. I know you're on screen. So
I haven't played it.
Look at, so you'll just be the passenger here as we go through our picks. I picked my picks early. I only got 20 points because I was way too confident. I put Jet Lawrence first, Chase Sexton in second, Cooper Webb third, Ken Roczen fourth, Anderson fifth, and Dean Wilson 15th. And as you can tell by the rider placement, after the races were done, Sexton takes the win. Tomac rebounds for second, Roczen third, McElrath fourth, Plessinger fifth, and Austin Politelli in that 15th position. So, yeah, I get 20 points, and I need redemption for round 3. Did you get anything close, Grayson?
I put Kenny to win, AP second, Eli third, Jet in fourth, Cooper Webb in fifth, and AC for 15th. So like Kenny was somewhat close, Eli was somewhat close, AP was just outside of what I would consider close, but other than that, I didn't really hit it very well with Jet dropping as far back as he did. And, I thought AC was going to struggle with, having hand problems and there being mud. So I thought possibly, he'd make the show, but he wasn't going to get anywhere past like 15th. So I felt pretty solid going into it, but
yeah,
I was way off. And the AP thing too, with I didn't think he was going to win. Like we were talking last week, if mud comes up with AP,
he got the heat race though.
He got that heat race. He was looking great in qualifying. I felt like he was the only one that was able to ride those whoops before they took him out too. I feel like if they would have kept that in there, he probably could have separated himself a little more. But I would say I had a mediocre pick for the weekend.
Yeah, hopefully we'll rebound. I'm not trying to be the Jet Lawrence wagon person or whatnot, but I submitted my picks already for San Diego, and I'm not doubting Tomac either, but I just need to see a dry race to see if he's back. So San Diego, I put Lawrence rebounds for first, Sexton second, Roczen third, Webb fourth, Anderson fifth, and wildcard 7th place, I put Tomac.
Oh,
Do you think I'm going to be accurate at all here, or do you think I'm just kind of?
I feel like the Tomac might be a little low still. Like I like
muddy. I just don't know.
Right, you don't know, but I feel I think he's going to rebound like we've been talking about. He might not. I think he's going to crack a top 5, but I feel like that's a little far back for him.
Yeah, I think Tomac in 7th is a bit of a hot pick.
Top 3. Wait, yeah, no way it'll be top 3. So I'm not crazy.
No, crazy, but a little out there.
Okay, we might be out on a crazy island, but whatever. Okay, this was a hot topic with pros, with Steve Mathis, Jason Wygant, Jason Thomas. Colin Jurin had some stuff to talk about. This track, Jimmy, Grayson, this is my hot take and bone to pick topic of the night. The changing between qualifying heats, the LCQ to the main event. For me, this is why I did not like the changes. And I feel like it really screwed some riders. So I'm fine with changes. Let's get that out of the way on tracks and whatnot. It's the multiple changes is what really, really kind of drove me nuts. And I'm using like very aggressive wording, everyone's opinionated just like me. And, it's nice to sit on the couch and say, well, I could have jumped that, even though I wouldn't have jumped that. But the reason I got so kind of worked up on it was the whoop section, I feel, should have stayed because it was already in the night show, the main, the heat race and whatnot. And that was Plessinger's like area where he could just shine. I feel like when they flattened it out, it took the advantages away from our pro riders that could get around the track. What are your guys' thoughts about the track changes?
Want to go first, Jimmy?
All right. Well, for the track changes themselves, of course, they want to give the fans, Feld wants to give the fans as much of a show as they can give them. So they obviously don't want to just make a flat track for everybody to ride around. But you also have to take into account the rider's safety. Like, if somebody gets too swappy in the whoops and then somebody else comes in and just T-bones them, granted in the mud, that might not be as much of an issue, but still, if they go down and like say their bike goes down on top of them, they're stuck under that. They get, pinched between the sprocket and the chain, or they get burnt by their header pipe. There's a lot of possibilities there for riders' safety. I've never heard anything on why they did it, but I'm sure that is why they did it. Same with shortening down the triples down into doubles. There were some riders in qualifying that were still hitting that triple.
That's my point.
But by the end of the night, nobody was even hitting that double. Not even the fastest of the 450 guys were hitting that double. Everybody was just out there rolling everything, just trying to survive. Excuse me. The last thing they wanted to do was fight more elements. There was a bike in the 250 class, I think it was, that might have been the number 20, whose name for whatever reason currently escapes me.
Volan.
Yeah, Talon Vol, or no, excuse me, not Talon, Maximus Volan. His bike, I think it was him. His bike was just stuck where it was the whole race. They could not get that thing out. I'm sure there were a couple of bikes that probably needed to get, pushed back not pushed back, but carried back to the pits in one of the Bobcats. I think it was in qualifying. There was one bike they had to push off, and that bike tire, they even showed it on TV. I see it on TV, like they were pushing that bike, but that back wheel was absolutely not turning. So, for the, factory riders, it's probably not as much of an issue. They got all the support in the world, but like for the privateer guys, if they blow up their bike this week, they might not get to ride this next week or the week after. So,
but would the whoop sections would have made a difference about blowing a bike up or not? I just feel
a
like
lot of stress on the bike.
Even though it was difficult, it made it to where the skill level that Plessinger had through the whoops and Prado and others, and really took that advantage and really flattened it out, literally.
Well,
yeah, that's fair. I can see your point there.
Like he was saying, though, Feld wants to put on a good race. They want to make sure bikes are moving around the track and not getting stuck or people crashing regularly. And yeah, like I get what you're saying too. It really takes away that advantage from AP and Prado. They were killing it in the mud, and I feel like they could have done really well if the track would have remained the same. But I feel like Feld wants to give the audience more of a race to watch. Unfortunately, now they're not thinking, oh, fair for this rider, fair for that rider. They're thinking about the fans and then safety as well. Like he was saying, if somebody gets stuck under a bike, it's going to take longer for somebody to jump out there and help him. And there's a lot more safety concerns that I think kind of go into it a little bit more. But I understand what you're saying. If those whoops would have stayed in there, I think AP and Prado could have, possibly gotten the podium positions this weekend. But I guess we'll never know because Feld makes the big decisions out there, really.
Yeah, I'm all up for changes. Like, I didn't disagree with Colin on his comment and whatnot. My only thing that makes me like bummed out was like, and this is where I agreed with Steve in his recap they did on the San Francisco. Like, if we're gonna make changes and whatnot, like have it all be the same for the heat race, the LCQ and the main. So if we're gonna get rid of the whoops, get rid of it right before any of it starts. So that way, who knows? Justin Hill didn't even qualify into the night show because there was one session he had to deal with, the way the track was set up. And then they go and change the track at the end of the night. He's probably throwing his hands up like, well, I probably would have qualified if that triple wasn't there or whoops or who knows. Like, that's just my thing. Like, if you're going to change the track, have it the same for the heat, the LCQ, and the main event. That was my whole argument.
No, and another thing on the Justin Hill topic, there was still scheduled in a second set of qualifying runs, but they just they didn't have the time for it. They had to make the track changes that they had to make. There was supposed to be, I don't know if I already mentioned this here or not, but there was supposed to be like a 20-minute break or so in between the two qualifying sessions. But then after the first session, they brought out the dozers and they were already chopping down the triple that was in front of me. And, with like 5 minutes to go, they still hadn't even so much as started packing down the dirt that they had already taken down. So I knew they were going to at least shorten down those qualifying sessions. And then not long after I kind of thought that, they called it in over the radio. Second qualifying session's been axed. So
I feel like too, like I feel like we got to figure something else out for qualifying, especially when conditions get bad. Like, I don't know. I felt like everybody needs a better chance. Like, maybe we go to a hot lap, like one at a time or something like that. So the track's not getting as deteriorated and, or do like one qualifying session with everybody and then the top, 25 or whatever, something, get like hot lap ones to get like that extra, step to possibly get in. And then the track's not getting as destroyed. I don't know. It's just, I feel like there should have been a little more chances because, like you said, Justin didn't even really get a chance to get back out there and prove that he can get through it. A simple mistake in the mud and one qualifying or one mechanical problem that could be easily fixed in 5 minutes could ruin your entire night and you're just out, and it's a little disappointing to see, especially one of our Northwest guys not be able to race in the mud because I feel like he could have really shown up in the top 5 possibly this weekend with that.
Yeah. I mean, your idea there, it's a fun idea. I just don't know with timing wise. And Jimmy's the expert here.
The time,
timing.
Hey, don't go putting titles in my mouth over there.
Well, that was the bone to pick, and hopefully I don't get unfollowed or unfriended or anything, and I explained my point better. But yeah, that I wasn't against like the changes all the way. It was just like, if we're gonna change, make sure it's
when they were done.
Yeah, just make sure it's the same for the heat, the LCQ, and the main. Like, just eliminate the whoops like right at the beginning, so that way everyone's got it. So you can get, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, the ride. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're right.
For what it's worth, the riders were offered a sight lap, but as you can imagine, that was a pretty unanimous no, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. For sure. You see I don't know if you guys were seeing the double goggles on the line and stuff like that too. They were taking every precaution they could, which I thought was pretty funny to watch, but that I wouldn't want to go out and take a sight lap for any reason to get any more mud on my bike than I had to.
Yeah. And that's, that it was pretty well expected that nobody was going to take a sight lap.
Yeah.
Because even on top of, getting your clean bike all muddied up before the drop of the gate, there's also the risk of your bike getting stuck out there again.
Yep.
If you're going too slow in the mud, that's just all the more chance that you're going to get stuck in that mud. So it wasn't expected, but it was still at least offered, hey, does anybody want to take a sight lap? And that was a pretty well resounding no. And I know in the 450, the main event start, I seen a lot of splashing, and I did see one body go flying. And I think that was Anderson that went out there. J21
the bars hard, and Malcolm Stewart, two races in a row, opening lap issues, and I think Malcolm's just hating life right now. Hopefully, he keeps the positive vibes and can get out of that first turn because it has not been great so far.
Well, in qualifying too, Mookie, that guy got stuck in the mud again. Like AC had to stop and like direct traffic away from him, and that poor guy was just stuck there forever. Yeah, I don't think Mookie had a good time in San Francisco this week.
I know. I think AC tried to take your job, Jimmy.
I tried to kind of direct traffic a couple of times, and I got over the radio, hey, focus on your area.
Well, notable races coming up in the Northwest. We will jump into more PNW stuff. Right now, it's really easy to talk about Supercross. So, Grace and I have been doing that for a little bit. We're going to try to get some riders on here, just like we had our first guest, Jimmy Marquez. So you're our number one guest so far.
Dougie.
Upcoming
history.
Races, if you can get to them, because they're really snowy right now. This is brought to you by, and I haven't even asked them for it, but I'm going to give them a plug anyways, Northwest Motocross. According to their schedule on there, Northwest Arena Cross Nationals round number 6 up at Monroe, Washington. WHR Arena Cross going on Saturday the 20th. And High Desert has a winter race, which is probably a snow race right now on Sunday, the 21st. Make sure to check with WHR Motorsports and High Desert and make sure that they are still going. I know they raced last weekend at WHR in 10-degree weather, which is crazy. and everyone had fun. But yeah, it was definitely a cold one. I'm taking the weekend off. Grayson, what are you doing this weekend? Just watching the races? What?
Yeah, I've just been sitting back playing some Monster Energy Supercross 6 when I get bored, I don't plan on going anywhere until I absolutely have to, when the boss man at work says, "Hey, we actually got to come to work today." But I probably won't be making it out to any tracks until we start hitting that nicer weather. I'm a fair weather person. I I'm not like you, Stephen. I don't risk it all in the mud and the cold to get those photos. It's awesome that you're doing it for our community, but I'm too much of a baby to go and deal with that.
Well, I'm doing nothing. The only one working here for this podcast this weekend's Jimmy, technically.
Right.
Yeah, I'm flying down to San Diego again this weekend. I actually ran into somebody on the plane. Sorry if he ends up watching this. I didn't catch your name. But, as we were loading onto the plane, I heard somebody asking me, behind me, "Hey, were you at the race this weekend or something?" And I heard somebody else reply, "Yeah, no, sorry, different kind of race." I turned around, "Hey, y'all talking about Supercross back there?" Yeah.
All right. So wrap it up. To find further podcasts and whatnot, make sure to follow Gate Drop Productions on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube, GateDropProductions.com. Follow at Gate Drop Pro on Instagram. Grayson, what are your plugs for people to follow you once again?
Look at me. Look at me. Yeah. Huh?
Look
for me. Look for me on Instagram at gravy_648, and also Facebook, Gravy Photography, where I post everything that I'm doing wise for photos and stuff. But primarily Instagram. Check me out there. Wanted to give a quick shout out real quick. I was out working last week up in Vancouver delivering, and I stopped out at Bent Lever. Hung out there for a few minutes on my lunch break, checked it out. Super cool place, cool dudes behind the counter. If you're ever up there, check them out.
Sweet. Jimmy, do you want anyone to follow you, or are you just going to go back to Bungtrolian, or however you say it?
I'm pretty keep to myself kind of guy, To people I don't know, I'm pretty shy. To people who I do know, they're probably sick of hearing me already and all the stupid reels and memes and stuff that I'm posting. But my shout out, I want to give a shout out. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I've known you for a very long time, but I think we've only said like 3 or 4 words to each other in person until like the last couple of years.
There's been a lot of that too, man. A lot of online homies that I'm cool with that. Hey, we don't talk a lot, but you know what? We share a passion, memes, moto, whatever it is, But the shout out I want to give, Brian Haydu. After I landed in on Sunday from the races, nice sunny after the day races, and a sunny day in San Francisco after the races. Excuse me. I come back home to this, and I drove my truck up there, parked in economy parking, and I go to unlock my truck, and my lock cylinder is frozen.
Oh, damn.
And they don't have any help for that over there. So I ended up calling up, Brian Haydu. Hey, you mind coming and saving my life? So he showed up with a torch, and we, got my lock frozen, and he made sure that my truck started and got me home. So Brian Haydu, thank you. Him, I used to work for his dad, Fred, when I was, working at Power for a while. So those are both awesome dudes. So my shout out goes to them. And of course, you two for bringing me on.
One more shout out for a racetrack that I missed. Horn Rapids has practice, it looks like, this weekend as well. Make sure to double check with Horn Rapids and make sure they're running. And yeah, I believe that's everything. Like I said, I try to cover as much as possible. I know northwestmotocross.com is trying to do their best as well as Tyson Barr with OPMC, but we'll do more stuff once everything kind of starts. And who knows, maybe we can do some event recaps of Thursday Night Motocross, and if any of us can get out there, cover like one of the races and talk about up and coming amateurs and get more people part of the podcast. So that's all I got for you. See you guys next Monday at 6:30. Grayson, are you gonna show up again, or am I solo?
Oh, I'm sure I'll be there. Unless something crazy happens, I'll be here.
All right, sounds good. Jimmy, thanks for jumping in with us and powwowing about San Francisco. Have fun down in San Diego.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. If you guys ever need a guest, I might not be the most fun, but I'm always here for it. So just let me know.
Well, we dubbed you our correspondent for the races for when you're going to Supercross. So you've kind of gotten in now for a little while.
Yeah,
I'll take
if you
it.
need to send an invoice, you know what my email is.
I do. Yeah, I'm working. Like I said, or obviously I work in San Francisco. I'm working San Diego, taking a couple weeks off, working Glendale, and then working Seattle. And then I'm waiting to hear what I'm going to work for the outdoor series. But I am trying to work my way into working more races. So
Nice.
Well, if you want a finish line flag for me for the Gate Drop Showdown 2.0, that is coming up. Not anytime soon.
I'll be there for
September
it.
13th through 15th at Albany MX, and you may see Jimmy flagging there.
Yeah, I had a separated shoulder this year, but I was still out there, so I'll be there again next year.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how you swung the flags with a separated shoulder.
Yeah, those weren't light flags, but hey, I did the
job. All right, that's a wrap for episode 2, the 30+2 podcast.